Well, hey there! Welcome to my video. My name is JaBoc, and today I'm going to be talking about Nier Automata, an action RPG made by Platinum Games and directed by your boy Yoko Taro, who's just about the only person in the industry who doesn't take his job so seriously.
Nier Automata t-shirt! Nier Automata t-shirt! Nier Automata t-shirt! He's
a bit of a loose cannon when it comes to designing his games, those being the Dragon Guard and now Nier franchises. The stories he writes are strange, convoluted, and, on closer inspection, riddled with plot holes and inconsistencies. But there's no doubt that the fascinating lore and plots of these games have accumulated quite the cult following. The original Nier may have been a cult classic, but objectively speaking, it was pretty bad. Nier Automata, on the other hand, has broken into the mainstream, having sold over 2 million copies since its release. It has an 88 on Metacritic and has gotten glowing reviews by both major game reviewers and smaller critics alike. Numbers aside, let's get into it. The game starts with your character, a female android named 2B, approaching a factory overrun by enemy robots with other members of your squad in mechanized flight units. It's here where we're introduced to the top-down shooting mechanics reminiscent of old arcade shooters like Galaga in 1945. The camera and controls then shift perspective to resemble a twin-stick shooter. This is about all you can expect from the flight unit sections. They often leave something to be desired. The controls don't feel precise enough to be able to consistently dodge the projectiles, especially when the camera is at a wonky angle or in the process of moving. At times they drag on for way too long and, when you die, send you all the way back to the start of a 5-minute sequence that just gets more boring each time. I'm glad they're there though. They're a good way to break up the gameplay and offer a new kind of challenge. They also act as a convenient plot device to get the story going places when it needs to. Obviously, however, these sections aren't the real meat of the gameplay. A huge benefit to the way this game plays is the fact that Platinum Games helped develop it. They're the guys behind some of the biggest and best third-person action games on the market right now, including Metal Gear Revengeance, Bayonetta, and Vanquish. Needless to say, when it comes to this kind of game, they know what they're doing. The controls are tight and responsive, allowing you a huge amount of mobility. Despite Nier Automata being an RPG, it mainly focuses on combat. You've got your standard heavy and light attacks, dodge, double jump, etc. But you've also got a few unique things like your probe, which allows you to deal with enemies from a distance, which is useful when you're surrounded by high-level enemies or projectile spamming robots. At first, I thought it was kind of cheating to kill enemies from a safe distance instead of getting close up and personal to deal with them like a real man should. But this pretense quickly faded away as the mechanics fully support and even encourage you doing so in many situations. Obviously, running away and holding down the left bumper isn't as satisfying as unleashing devastating combos against your enemies, but sometimes it's just necessary. Running from fights in general, especially ones with many opponents that are higher level than you, is a valid tactic, and one you should use unless you want to lose your plug-in chips. You see, plug-in chips act as upgrades, perks, whatever you want to call them. In most Western RPGs, when you level up, you can acquire new abilities or upgrade old ones. But in the majority of JRPGs, your level only represents your HP and damage outputs. Enemies at a higher level will easily decimate you if you let them, simply because their numbers are higher than yours. This is supplemented in Nier Automata by these plug-in chips, which act as augments for specific abilities, like regenerating HP, longer range attacks, faster movement speed, etc. You have limited space for them though, so you have to manage which ones you want. Some take more space than others, so you have to choose which you value the most. They often drop from enemies and you can combine two of the same type to create a more powerful one. There's also the aforementioned mechanic of losing them when you die, unless you're able to reach your body. You know. Like Dark Souls.
It's shaping up to be the Dark Souls of Nintendo games! Looks like it's gonna be the Dark Souls of weather! Where scientists have discovered a new species of butterfly and it's the Dark Souls of the animal kingdom! Wait, breaking news! Breaking news, this just said Dark Souls 4! Dark Souls 4 was just released, it's done! No, what?
Speaking of death, the game allows you to leave messages on your body when you die, which ties into an online mechanic where you can find other players' bodies and either take their plug-in chips or resurrect them as an NPC to fight alongside you for a short amount of time. This acts as an extra boost to your firepower if you really need it for an upcoming battle, which you really might need because of this game's difficulty. By no means is it ever unfair. Most enemies' attacks can easily be dodged, and the reuse of enemy types throughout the game allows you to familiarize yourself with their moves, so the steady ramp up in intensity feels balanced. The harder modes are a different story, however. When I choose to play on a harder difficulty, it's because I want a more challenging but still balanced experience. Hard mode in Nier Automata does little but make the enemy's damage skyrocket to a point where it isn't even fun anymore. There's even a very hard mode if you hate your life. Unless you really think this game is too easy, normal mode will serve you just fine. The bosses in this game are both spectacles as well as true tests of skill. They look and feel massive, making it all the more awesome when you defeat them. Side quests in this game are pretty simple and, well, RPG-ish. They have you backtracking to different parts of the map to collect certain items, kill certain enemies, or accomplish certain objectives. They usually amount to little more than fetch quests, but the stories behind them are probably the most entertaining aspect. Doing a few side quests in between story objectives allows you to rest a bit and take things slow after the intensity of your main quest. It's also an opportunity to get more money and XP, which you'll need a lot of. I never had to grind for levels, but I felt at times that maybe the game wanted me to. There were sections where my enemies' levels far exceeded my own, causing the fights to go on for way too long as they had a ton of HP and my measly damage just wasn't doing much. The world design in this game has you running back and forth between locations you've already been to, with the ability to teleport between them being unlocked about halfway through the game. These sections where you have nothing to do but run to your next objective can get tedious, especially when there are areas you should clearly be able to pass through that are blocked off by invisible walls, but they generally aren't too bad because the world is small enough to allow you to run across it in a relatively short amount of time, as well as there being plenty of enemies to fight along the way. The music also helps to make these sections less dull. You can also go fishing if you want to for some reason. I mean, you just press a button to start, cast your pod, and wait for something to happen. Not exactly riveting gameplay. There are a lot of items in this game, a lot of really useless items. I only ever felt the need to use healing items, the rest kind of falling by the wayside. By the end of the first route, I had enough money to buy as many heals as I wanted, and so pretty much everything else was irrelevant. Now, I realize I'm nitpicking this game to oblivion, but I promise it's only because I love it. That being said, no game is perfect. I should probably start talking about all the reasons this game is amazing though. There are plenty of weapons in this game, separated by a few archetypes. You've got spears, light swords, heavy swords, and fist types. All weapons within an archetype have the same move set, and all of them can be upgraded to be just as good as another. The only real reason I found to upgrade all of them is because they each have a unique story attached to them, which progresses as you upgrade them, which is a unique extra thing for completionists. Let's talk about the music. The music in this game is beyond fantastic. It's one of the best soundtracks to a game I've ever heard, thanks to the wonderful composer Keiichi Okabe, who also composed for the original Nier. Now, I'm no expert on music, but I think you only have to play the game for a while to realize just how special this game's soundtrack is. It truly elevates it to the point of a masterpiece. It isn't the main draw though. This game's crowning achievement is the story. It tells a deep and emotional tale about what it means to be human. It innovates video game storytelling in a myriad of ways. There's just nothing else like it. There are 5 main routes in this game. The first route takes place entirely from the perspective of 2B, and is the start of the story up to the death of the 2 main villains. The second route has the same story, but from the perspective of 2B's partner, 9S, which changes a surprising amount of things. There's extra character development, context, and gameplay features, like the hacking minigame. The story continues after Route 3. This kind of thing certainly makes Nier Automata unique in terms of its storytelling, and by no means was it wasted. I'm not going to go into too much detail concerning the actual plot, but its narrative aspects makes Nier Automata one of the best video games of 2017 easily. Anyways, if you like action games, get this game. If you like JRPGs, get this game. If you like story-driven games, get this game. It's truly one of the better games I've ever played, and one that will stick in my memory for a long time coming. Mr. Yoko Taro, you've created a masterpiece. My name is JaBoc, and may we meet again.